Rain lashed the 24-hour supermarket parking lot. I was hiding in my old sedan, termination papers in hand, when a sharp tap hit the glass. An old man stared in. "Do you own this car?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Good, because the next thing you'll own is the truth." 5 minutes later, his card was in my hand, Arthur Hale, the one man my family forbade me to know, my grandfather. "My name is Luna Cruz. I am 28 years old, and as of 6 hours ago, I am officially unemployed, courtesy of a departmental restructuring at North Star Metric." Restructuring is just a sterile, HR-approved word for "your keycard is dead," and that security guard, Greg, who you always say good morning to, is going to watch you pack your personal effects in a cardboard box. Now, I am parked in the aggressively bright, rain-slicked lot of a 24-hour supermarket in Riverton, Ohio. This is my hometown, but it doesn't feel like home. Home is an apartment on the third floor of a brick walk-up, and that apartment currently features a fluorescent orange sticker from the marshal's office plastered over the keyhole. I am 3 weeks late on rent. So, home, for the foreseeable future, is this 2011 sedan. Why am I late on rent? The answer is simple, and it's the same answer it has always been my family. I sent my last paycheck, the one earmarked for rent, to my mother, Linda. She needed it, urgently, or more accurately, my cousin Brielle needed it. Brielle, the family star. This has been the permanent weather system of my life. I am the reliable one, the sensible one, the low-maintenance utility. Brielle is the high-maintenance, high-reward investment. She is the talent. I am the infrastructure. It's a dynamic cemented in my earliest memories. When we were kids living under the same roof after my father died, Brielle was given the large bedroom with the bay window and the afternoon sun. I was given the converted linen closet that overlooked the neighbor's garbage cans. When I asked why, my mother fixed me with that look of weary disappointment. "Luna, you're the practical one. You understand. Brielle needs the space. She needs to move." And so Brielle moved. She got the subsidized dance lessons. She got the new outfits. She got the family-sponsored dance scholarship that I later learned was just my mother and aunt draining their savings. For my 16th birthday, I received a very sensible, waterproof backpack for my community college textbooks. I was already taking advanced classes. For Brielle's 16th, she was flown to a developmental workshop in Chicago, complete with a new wardrobe. "We have to support her gift, honey," Linda would say, patting my hand. "Your gift is being smart. That takes care of itself." Being smart meant I got the academic scholarships. Being smart meant I landed the analyst job at North Star 2 weeks after graduation. And being smart meant that for the past 5 years, a significant portion of every single paycheck I earned was automatically transferred into a joint bank account I shared with my mother. "Just to help with the bills, honey," she'd promised when we set it up. "Just to keep the lights on." It was never just the lights. It was costumes. It was competition fees. It was headshots. It was always another emergency, another utility shut-off notice that coincided perfectly with another unmissable opportunity for Brielle. A thank you was rare. An acknowledgement that I was sacrificing my own stability for her fantasy was non-existent. I was just the sensible one. I understood. Now, sitting in the driver's seat of my car, I look at my phone. I pull up my personal banking app, the screen glaring in the darkness of the car. I have been refreshing it every 10 minutes, as if hoping a glitch in the system will reveal a hidden surplus. It never does. Checking $186.14, that is the sum total of my life. $186. This car, this aging, slightly rusty sedan with a muffler that rattles every time I idle at a red light, is the only tangible asset I possess. The title is in my name. It is paid in full. It is the only reason I'm not huddled under a bridge right now. It is the only thing they can't take from me. A notification slides across the top of my screen. Instagram. A new post from Brielle. My stomach tightens into a cold, hard knot. I open it. She is standing in Paris, in front of the Eiffel Tower. Naturally, she's holding a flute of champagne in one hand and blowing a kiss to the camera. The caption is a breathless cascade of hashtags and gratitude. Living my absolute dream in the city of lights. I have the most supportive family in the entire world. Thank you, Mom, for believing in me and making this happen. Blessed Europe Artistic Journey, Paris. Thank you, Mom. I scroll down, my thumb shaking. The first comment, posted 60 seconds ago, is from Linda. So proud of my deserving girl. You have earned every second of this. Baby. Deserving. The word hits me with the force of a slap. I, who just got fired. I, who am locked out of my apartment. I, who have $186 to my name, am not the deserving one. She is. The rage is so sudden and sharp, it tastes like metal. My fingers move before my brain catches up. I close Instagram. I open the app for that old joint account, the one I fed for 5 years. I finally stopped the automatic transfers 3 months ago when I realized I was choosing between my own electric bill and Brielle's masterclass. I scroll past my old deposits, dozens of them, hundreds of dollars at a time. Then I look at the recent activity. The account should be nearly empty, but there are withdrawals, recent ones. I don't recognize the merchant names. Rowan Services. Artistic Development Grant. Travel Logistics Fee. They aren't huge, but they are steady. $100 here, $200 there. Timestamps show they were withdrawn just days after my last, final deposit. The deposit I sent for the rent. It wasn't for rent. It was for Paris. This is the moment the floor falls out. I wasn't just helping. I was the mark. I was funding a European vacation while my own life was being systematically dismantled. And that's when the rain starts. It's not a gentle spring shower. It's a cold, violent Ohio downpour. The kind that turns roads into rivers in 10 minutes. The wind buffets the car. I am parked in the brightest spot I can find, right under the massive floodlight by the supermarket's main entrance. Safety and visibility. I pull up the termination email from North Star again. I read the key phrases. Corporate realignment. Elimination of your current role. Effective immediately. It's cold. Really cold. The car's insulation is poor. I can see my breath misting in the air, fogging the inside of the windshield. I want to blast the heat, but I look at the gas gauge. It's hovering just above empty. Running the engine is a luxury I cannot afford. $186. A quarter tank of gas. A box of office supplies. Tap, tap, tap. The sound is sharp, metallic, right against my window. I jump so violently I crack my head against the steering wheel. A flare of pain behind my eyes. I gasp, my heart hammering against my ribs. Through the river of rain streaming down the glass. A figure. A man. He's old, but he's standing perfectly straight, wearing a dark, heavy raincoat that looks like it cost more than my car. He isn't hunched against the storm. He is just there, watching me. My first thought is danger. A cop. A thief. I lower the window, but only an inch. A sliver. Cold spray immediately hits my cheek. Can I help you? He leans down. He isn't close, but his presence fills the small space. His eyes are bright, shockingly clear, and they are not kind or concerned. They are analytical. They are assessing. Do you own this car? His voice is quiet, cultured, but it slices right through the drumming of the rain. The question is so profoundly strange that my fear momentarily freezes. What? This vehicle, he repeats, gesturing with a black-gloved hand. Is it registered to you? Is your name on the title? I am baffled. Why? It's a simple question. Young lady. Yes, I say, my voice hoarse. It's mine. I own it. He nods once, a slow, deliberate movement. His gaze flicks from me to the cardboard box on the passenger seat, filled with my desk photos and a stapler, then to the duffel bag of clothes I managed to grab from my apartment, visible in the back. He takes it all in. Good, he says, because the next thing you'll own is the truth. My mind is completely blank. I have no framework for this conversation. He reaches into the inner pocket of his coat. I flinch, my hand instinctively going to the door lock, but it's already locked. He doesn't pull out a wallet or a weapon. He pulls out a business card. It's thick, cream-colored, and seems completely impervious to the rain. He doesn't try to force it through the crack in the window. He holds it up against the glass. Arthur Hale, founder, Halcyon Forge Group. Hale. The name doesn't register at first, and then it hits me like a physical blow. Hale. The name my mother spits like an obscenity. The name I was forbidden from ever asking about. The name of my father's family. The man who, according to Linda, disowned his only son. My father. And left us with absolutely nothing. My grandfather. I am completely frozen. I can't breathe. He calmly slides the heavy card under my windshield wiper, where it sits, stark white against the black rubber. If you can own the smallest thing, Arthur Hale says, his sharp eyes holding mine, you can learn to own the bigger ones. He doesn't smile. He doesn't wait for a reply. He simply turns, his back perfectly straight, and walks away. He doesn't run. He just walks, disappearing into the downpour. A moment later, a dark, gleaming sedan, a Bentley, maybe. Something that looks like it belongs in a movie pulls silently out of the lot and vanishes. I sit there for a full minute, just listening to the rain and the sound of my own heart. My hands are shaking so badly it takes 2 tries to open the door. I snatch the card. It's impossibly heavy. Halcyon Forge Group. I've seen that logo on half the major buildings in downtown Riverton. I flip it over. On the back, not a phone number, just an address on the rich side of the river, and a time, written in sharp, precise, black ink. 7:12 a.m., not 7, not 7:30, 7:12. I fall back against the headrest, the cold vinyl sticking to the back of my neck. Arthur Hale, he's real, and he found me. How did he know I was here, at my lowest possible moment? Was he having me followed? Did he know I lost my job? Did he know I was locked out of my apartment? And why that question? Do you own this car? It was a test. I know it was. What would have happened if I'd said it was a rental? I think of my mother. The decades of bitterness. The Hales are poison. Luna. They destroy everything they touch. You stay away from that name. I look at the card. I look at my gas gauge. I have $186. I have a car that is mine, and I have an appointment at 7:12 in the morning with the billionaire patriarch I was raised to hate. I jam the key into the ignition. The engine turns over with a wet, struggling sound, but it catches. I am not spending another second in this parking lot. I spent the night in a different parking lot, this one behind a 24-hour gym, buying a $3 single-use pass just to use their shower at 5 a.m. I put on the only clean, interview-appropriate outfit I'd managed to grab from my apartment gray slacks and a black shell top. I used the last of my $186 to put just enough gas in the tank to get across the river and back, with maybe a little left over. At 7:05 a.m., I was parked across the street from the address on the card. It wasn't an office building, it was just Hale House. It was a monolith of dark glass and minimalist gray stone. A structure that didn't just occupy the block, it dominated it. It was architecture as a statement of power. It was designed to make you feel small. It was working. I crossed the street. The rain from last night had subsided to a cold, persistent drizzle. At exactly 7:11 a.m., I pushed through the heavy glass doors. The lobby was vast, silent, and cold. The floors were polished black marble that reflected the severe, recessed lighting. There was no art. There were no plants. There was just a single, massive desk of unpolished granite, helmed by a security guard who looked like he was carved from the same material. He wore a crisp, dark suit, not a uniform. I approached, my worn-out shoes squeaking slightly on the marble. I hated that sound. It announced me as an imposter. "Can I help you?" His voice was flat. I didn't say a name. I didn't know what to say. I just placed the heavy, cream-colored business card on the desk. He didn't glance at it. He slid it toward him, looked at it, and then looked at me. His eyes scanned me from my slightly damp hair to my shoes. Then, he pressed a button on an internal console. "Ms. Cruz is here." He didn't ask my name. The card was the password. "His office is on the top floor. The elevator will take you there directly," he said, gesturing to a private, unmarked steel door I hadn't even noticed. The elevator was as silent as the lobby. There were no buttons, just a panel where the guard had obviously keyed my destination. The ride was unnervingly fast. The doors opened directly into an office that mirrored the lobby, vast, minimalist, with a floor-to-ceiling glass wall that offered a panoramic, godlike view of Riverton under the gray morning sky. Arthur Hale was not behind his desk. He was standing by the window, looking down. He wore a perfectly tailored gray suit. He turned as I stepped out. "You are punctual," he said. It wasn't a compliment, just an observation. 7:12? "Your card said 7:12, I replied. So it did. He gestured to one of two severe-looking chairs facing his desk. I sat. He remained standing. "You were terminated from North Star Metric yesterday afternoon at 4:16 p.m. The reason cited was corporate restructuring, specifically the dissolution of the Internal Operations Analysis Wing. You were given standard severance, which I imagine you have not yet received." It wasn't a question. He knew. He had been watching me. The cold dread from the parking lot returned, sharper this time. "That's correct," I said, keeping my voice level. "Why were you terminated?" The email said restructuring. I am not asking what the email said. He moved to his desk, but he didn't sit. He leaned against it, his gaze pinning me to the chair. Why not the senior analyst, Mr. Davies, who has a higher salary and lower performance metrics for the last 2 quarters? My mind raced. How could he know that I chose my words carefully? I can't speak to Mr. Davies's performance. My projects were on schedule, my reviews were positive, but I was the last one hired in the department, and I don't have his tenure. You are not blaming him. You are not blaming your manager, who is his golf partner. Blaming them doesn't change the fact that I'm unemployed. Arthur Hale picked up a thick, old-fashioned fountain pen. He opened a heavy leather-bound notebook on his desk and wrote something. I saw it upside down. Honest under pressure. "Honesty is a commodity," he said, capping the pen. "Rare and expensive. Now, let's discuss why you are here." He slid a simple, manila envelope across the desk. It was thick, unsealed. I opened it. My hands were steady, but my heart was not. Inside was a single, old photograph, a glossy 5x7 from at least 30 years ago. It was a backyard party. A man I didn't recognize, young and smiling, had his arm around a very young, very happy Linda, my mother. They were standing by a barbecue. In the background, leaning against a tree, was a younger Arthur Hale, watching them. "My father," I whispered, touching the smiling man's face. The man I only knew from 2 faded photos my mother kept in a drawer. "My son," Arthur corrected. "And your father. He was a fool. But he was my fool. And that," he tapped the image of my mother, "is the woman who convinced him that my standards were a cage and her ambition was freedom." I stared at the photo. My mother looked light, genuinely happy. I had never seen her look that way. "You were forbidden to speak my name," he stated. "Yes," she said. "She said you were poison, that you disowned him over money, that you cut us off after he died." "Partially true," Arthur said, his voice devoid of any emotion. "We had a disagreement about inheritance. I believe inheritance is a responsibility one must be trained for. Your father believed it was a right he was owed. Your mother agreed with him. When I refused to liquidate a trust to fund one of his ideas, he chose to walk away. Linda encouraged it, after he died. She made her choice permanent. She preferred the narrative of the abandoned victim to the reality of the failed gambler. She cut you off from me." He let that sink in. The silence in the room was absolute. The entire history of my life, the small apartment, the cheap birthdays, the constant, grinding lack of everything reframed in 30 seconds. Not a tragedy, but a choice, her choice. I have watched you, he continued, walking back to the window. I watched you get scholarships. I watched you get that analyst job. I watched you transfer 40% of your take-home pay, for 5 years, into an account your mother used to fund your cousin's lifestyle. I flinched. The confirmation felt like a physical blow. I have a problem. Luna, I built an empire, but I'm surrounded by people who know how to spend money, not how to own anything. They like the nameplate, but they despise the balance sheet. Your father was one of them. Your mother is one of them. That cousin of yours, Brielle, is the archetype. He turned back to me. I found you in that parking lot, at the lowest point of your life, owning exactly one thing, a 10-year-old car. You are a blank slate. You are a Hale, but you were raised a Cruz. You have the blood, but none of the entitlement. This is a unique, and perhaps useful, combination. He retrieved something from a drawer, an old beaten-up laptop, a thick, heavy model that was at least 5 years out of date. He set it on the desk with a thud, next to a plastic keycard. I am not offering you a job. I am not offering you charity. I am offering you a test, an ownership test, as I call it. He pushed the laptop toward me. That is Granite Yards. It's a parking lot, a miserable, poorly managed piece of asphalt attached to a warehouse district I own. It is currently losing approximately $3,000 a month. It should be my most reliable, low-maintenance asset. Instead, it is a leak. He slid the keycard over. Your mission is to fix it. You have 72 hours. You are to restore positive revenue. You will do it without using a single cent of your own money. I looked at the ancient laptop. What are my resources? They are in front of you. That keycard gives you temporary, limited administrative access to that property and that property alone. The laptop contains the financials, such as they are, and access to the gate system. I have also created a temporary email for you, Luna, at halcyonpilot.com. That is your only line of communication. You will not call me. You will not come here. He paused, his eyes narrowing. You will not use your name. You will not mention me. You have temporary signing authority, delegated from a subcorporation. As far as anyone at that lot is concerned, you are a short-term auditor. You have legal control, but you have no inherited authority. You must create authority. But how can I fix a physical property with no money? I asked, my analyst brain already spinning. What if the gates are broken? What if the payment machines? That is the test. His voice cut me off, sharp and sudden. Anyone can fix a problem by throwing money at it. That is spending. That is what your mother does. I need to know if you can own it. Ownership, he said, leaning in, begins with the ability to make the rules people pay for, not with a nameplate. 72 hours, an impossible task, a broken parking lot, no money, and a grandfather who was observing me like a scientist studying a rat in a maze. I looked at the laptop. I looked at the keycard. I looked at the view of the city, a city I couldn't even afford an apartment in. I'll do it, I said, a flicker of something, not a smile. Approval. Good. He added one more thing as I picked up the laptop. If you fail, if you call me for help, if you spend $1 you did not generate from the asset itself, we have never met. The guard downstairs will not remember your face, and that card will be worthless. Am I clear? Yes. Then you are wasting time. I walked out of the office, the heavy laptop weighing down my arm. The elevator ride was a silent fall. I walked through the black marble lobby, past the guard who did not look up, and back out into the gray, drizzling morning. I was terrified. I was furious. And for the first time in my life, I was energized. I got in my car, the interior still smelling faintly of stale coffee and desperation. I set the laptop on the passenger seat. My phone, which I'd left in the glove box, buzzed. I picked it up. A text message from Linda. Hi, honey. Just letting you know not to come by the house this week. Brielle is back and needs to decompress and practice. She's very fragile after the trip. Don't want you bringing any of your work drama over here. We'll see you when things calm down. Don't cause drama. My work drama, my life, reduced to an inconvenience for the deserving daughter. I watched the text bubble for a long moment. The rage was cold now. It was precise. I didn't text back. I didn't cry. I turned the phone off. I would not be needing it. I opened the old laptop. It whirred to life slowly. The desktop was clean except for a single folder labeled Granite Yards. Inside, a few PDF invoices and one Excel spreadsheet titled GY Cash Flow Master. I opened it. It was a mess, a poorly constructed ledger, obviously manipulated, but the data was still there. Underneath the sloppy formatting, I saw the receipts from the automated pay station. Then I saw the column labeled Cash Attendant Booth. It was almost zero. Every day. For months. A parking lot in a warehouse district, a place full of contractors and delivery drivers who use cash for everything, was reporting zero cash income. I looked at the invoices. They were paying for 2 full-time attendants. They weren't just leaking money. They were being robbed blind. And I had 72 hours to prove it and fix it, with nothing but a key card and a spreadsheet. I started the car. I knew exactly what I had to do first. Granite Yards was less a parking lot and more a graveyard for asphalt. I pulled my sedan in, the chassis scraping on a pothole the size of a manhole cover. The entrance gate arm was gone, not raised, but physically snapped off, its metal stump weeping rust. I parked in the farthest corner, out of sight of the small, fogged-up attendant booth where a man sat reading a newspaper. The main price sign was a disaster. The vinyl lettering was peeling, and the rates for trucks versus cars were obscured by a layer of grime and spray paint. It was impossible to tell what the actual price was. This wasn't a leak. It was a hemorrhage. I looked at the infrastructure. The license plate scanner Arthur mentioned was mounted on a pole. Its lens cracked, the indicator light dark. It was offline. Dead. The entire system seemed to be running on the honor system, or, more likely, on the whim of the guy in the booth. I sat in my car, the old laptop plugged into my cigarette lighter adapter, which thankfully still worked. I opened the spreadsheet. Then I started a stopwatch on my phone. For 3 hours, I sat there, just counting. I manually tracked every vehicle that entered and every vehicle that left. I categorized them in my own spreadsheet: delivery vans, quick turnaround, warehouse worker sedans long-term, contractor trucks midday arrival, cash visible on the dash. The lot was busy. The warehouses were active. I tracked the peak flow 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and the lunch rush at noon. At 12:30 p.m., the day shift attendant left the booth, presumably for lunch. This was my chance. I got out and walked over, my heart pounding. I tried the key card Arthur had given me. It didn't open the booth's main door. I didn't have that level of authority. But it did open a locked, gray maintenance panel on the side of the offline automated pay station nearby. Inside was a mess of wires, a modem, and a router. The router was unplugged. I plugged it in. A series of lights blinked red, then green. I ran back to my car and watched the laptop. A new network connection appeared. I connected. The system was live. Data, weeks of it, began to populate the laptop's drive. The automated station was working, or at least its credit card terminal was. It was logging every card payment made at the booth's terminal. I sat in my car for another 2 hours, cross-referencing my manual head count from the morning against the digital receipts from the same period. The math was sickening. Based on my observed traffic flow and the few legible prices on the sign, the automated receipts only accounted for about 63% of the expected revenue. 37%. That was the loss. A clean, consistent 37% skimmed right off the top. I didn't have money for a new sign. I didn't have money for a security camera. Arthur's rule was absolute. Do not spend your own money. I looked at my personal cell phone. I had a free cloud storage account with 5 gigs of space. I found a free app that turns a phone into a motion-activated security camera. I walked to the darkest, highest corner of the lot, near an overflowing dumpster, and climbed up on a stack of discarded pallets. I wedged my phone between two rusted pipes overlooking the attendant's booth. It was a terrible angle, a grainy picture, but it would see the driver's side window of every car that paid. I set it to record motion and upload via the lot's now active public Wi-Fi. Next, the sign. I needed to bypass the attendant. I needed to create new rules people paid for. I opened a free QR code generator online. I linked it to a new, basic payment profile I created using the temporary authority delegated to my Halcyon Pilot email. It was a simple, secure checkout page. I designed a new sign on the laptop's ancient presentation software. I made it bright yellow. Attendant booth closed for system upgrade. And in huge, bold letters, pay here, scan to exit. I put the QR code front and center. I listed the rates clearly, $5 for the first hour, $20 flat rate for all day. I took the file on a USB stick, the one from my North Star termination box, to a copy shop 3 blocks away. I couldn't use my own money, but the lot had a petty cash envelope in the maintenance panel for emergency supplies. It had $41 and change in it. I used 25 of it to laminate 3 large signs. It wasn't my money. It was the asset's money. I was reinvesting. I hung the signs myself, using zip ties I found in the maintenance box. I placed one at the entrance, one directly in front of the attendant booth, and one at the exit. The effect was immediate. Drivers slowed down, confused. They pulled out their phones. I watched from my car. Scan, pay. The revenue started hitting the digital ledger in real time. The day attendant, a heavy guy named Sal, came back from lunch. He saw the sign. He stopped dead. He stared at it. Then he looked around the lot, his eyes searching, dark and angry. He saw my car in the corner. He didn't wave. The first 24 hours passed. I catnapped in my driver's seat, the cramped space making my neck ache. I analyzed the data. The QR payments were flooding in. The cash attendant's log for that day 0. The night shift guy. Mitch showed up at 10 p.m. He was younger, jittery, and clearly annoyed. He saw the sign, ignored it, and took cash from a contractor truck. Waving them through, I watched it happen. Clear as day. On my shaky phone camera feed, the cash went into his pocket, not the register. I had the proof. Using the Halcyon Pilot email, I accessed the employee scheduling portal. I found the form for temporary fiduciary suspension. I cited gross negligence and failure to adhere to new payment protocols. I signed it with my name, Luna Cruz, Auditor, Temporary Project Authority. I printed it at the copy shop using the last of the petty cash. I taped it to the booth door before the night shift started on day 2. Effective immediately. Night shift operations suspended pending financial review. Booth closed from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I had cut off the night's skim. The backlash came 3 hours later. It wasn't a phone call. It was an email. Sent to the generic info address for Granite Yards, which I'd forwarded to my Pilot account. The sender was anonymous, a string of random numbers. The subject line was blank. The message was 4 words. Don't touch our money. Attached was a photograph. It wasn't of me. It was of my car. Parked in the corner, a close-up of my license plate, taken in the dark. My blood went ice cold. They weren't just angry. They were watching me. They knew which car was mine. This wasn't a corporate audit anymore. I was a target. I should have left. I should have driven to a hotel. But I had no money. And this was the test. If you fail, we have never met. I stayed. I locked the doors. I moved to the back seat. Below the window line, I wedged my cardboard box of office supplies against one door and my duffel bag against the other. I gripped the can of pepper spray I kept in my purse. I didn't sleep. Every sound a truck hitting the pothole. The wind rattling the chain-link fence made my heart hammer against my ribs. At around 3 a.m., I heard it. A scrape, a sharp, dragging, metallic screech. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I held the pepper spray so tightly my knuckles ached. I waited, listening, for what felt like an hour. Silence. When the sun finally came up, I crawled into the front seat, a long, jagged scratch, deep enough to show the white undercoat. ran the entire length of the driver's side, from the headlight to the taillight. They had marked me. They had touched the only thing I owned. The fear was quickly replaced by a cold, hard rage. This was my test. This was my property to fix. I went back to the maintenance panel. The license plate scanner was dead, but the box it fed into was not. It was just disconnected. I spent an hour tracing wires, matching colors, and rebooting the embedded system from the laptop. The scanner whirred. The cracked lens lit up with a dim red light. I connected it to the laptop. The database was archaic, but it was functional. It wasn't just a scanner. It was an access control system. It managed a whitelist of plates and RFID cards that could bypass the payment system entirely. The list was full of maintenance vehicles, the property manager, the leasing agent, all expected. And then I saw it. One entry, tagged as VIP access, family. It had unlimited, 24/7, free in and out privileges. My stomach dropped. I read the name registered to the account. Brielle Whitaker, my cousin, the star, the deserving one. She wasn't in Paris, or, if she was, she had given this privilege to someone else. Her name was in the system. Why would my cousin, who lived on the other side of town, need free, unlimited access to a warehouse parking lot? This wasn't a random skim by a few greedy attendants. This was organized. This was family. I had 6 hours left. The 72-hour deadline was approaching. I stared at Brielle's name. I felt the deep, familiar sting of the setup. The realization that I was, once again, the only one not in on the joke. My hand moved to the mouse. I clicked on her name. I clicked Disable Account. A confirmation box appeared. Are you sure you want to revoke access? I clicked Yes. I went down the rest of the list, disabling every non-essential tag. I created a new, clean whitelist. Then, I opened my Halcyon Pilot email. I drafted a new message to Arthur Hale. I did not mention the threat. I did not mention the scratch on my car. He didn't ask for my feelings. He asked for a result. The subject line was Granite Yards, 72-hour status report. The body was short, analytical, identified 37% revenue loss due to unmonitored cash handling and access control gaps, implemented stopgap QR payment system, bypassing attendant booth, suspended non-compliant night shift, eliminating primary cache skim, reactivated LPR system, purged unauthorized access list, including one family VIP tag, attached ledger comparison, Day 1 versus Day 3, video evidence of cache skim. I looked at the final numbers. By forcing all payments through the digital, auditable system, the revenue hadn't just stabilized, it had increased. Result net revenue increased by 62% in 72 hours. The asset is now profitable. I hit send. I sat back in my scratched-up car, my body aching from 3 days of no sleep, my stomach empty. I had passed his test. And in doing so, I had just declared war on my own family. I just didn't know it yet. I was back in Hale House, but this time, the guard nodded. The elevator felt less like a cage and more like a focused ascent. I was running on nothing but the dregs of adrenaline and the acidic satisfaction of my small, brutal victory. I had not slept in nearly 3 days. I was sure I looked like hell. Arthur was at his desk. My brief report was open on a sleek monitor next to his leather notebook. 62%, he said. He did not say good job or well done. It was not a celebration. It was a confirmation of data. You confirmed the leak. You plugged it. You also kicked the hornet's nest. The attendants, I said, my voice rough. No, he dismissed them with a small, sharp wave of his hand. The attendants were the symptom, a messy, obvious one. You kicked the real nest. He swiveled in his chair and gestured to a large, dark screen on the wall. It lit up, displaying a complex flowchart. It was a web of LLCs, holding companies, and trusts. At the very center, in a bold, severe font, Halcyon Forge Group. Branching off from it were dozens of smaller entities. The assets. I saw Granite Yards, and I saw others. 5 others, circled in red. Gray Line Cold Storage. Brookspan Logistics. Iron Hall Events Center. Granite Yards was a rounding error. Ms. Cruz, he said, his voice dropping. It was a litmus test. The real disease is systemic. It's an infection. I stepped closer to the screen, my analyst's brain kicking in, pushing past the exhaustion. What am I looking at? You are looking at my empire, he said, and it is bleeding, not by 37%. That was sloppy. Arrogant. The real leaks are smarter. 5% here, 8% there. A quiet, patient, systemic siphoning. Too small for the high-level auditors to flag as critical, but far too consistent to be accidental. He pointed to a name on the chart I didn't recognize, an entity that seemed to connect to all 5 of the red-circled assets. This is the parasite, Rowan Advisory. The name meant nothing to me. A competitor, a vendor, a wealth management fund, a boutique advisory firm. He turned from the screen to look at me, and his gaze was sharp, pinning me. It is run by a man named Caleb Rowan. My breath hitched. My stomach went cold. I knew that name. Uncle Caleb. The name felt thick and alien in my mouth. Caleb Rowan. He wasn't blood. He was the kind advisor, the family friend who had appeared in our lives shortly after my father died. He was the one who always helped my mother with her paperwork. He was the one who took her to nice dinners once or twice a month. The one who always complimented Brielle on her natural poise. I had always thought he was just a nice, slightly lonely man who pitied my mother. A fixture. He was your mother's romantic partner for a time, many years ago, Arthur said, his voice flat, devoid of judgment. A relationship he has, leveraged. Caleb is the good-natured advisor who has been helping Linda manage her finances for the last decade. She has no finances, I said numbly. The words just came out. Exactly. Arthur's expression did not change. She has her status as my son's widow, a status that gives her certain perceived privileges. Caleb helped her navigate the halcyon ecosystem. In return for his kindness, his guidance, Linda granted him influence. She allowed him to place friendly vendors. She gave family access to her protégé. That protégé, of course, was Brielle. He was connecting dots I never knew existed, drawing lines between worlds I thought were separate. The parking lot, Brielle's VIP card. It wasn't just a free parking spot. It was a signal. It was Caleb's way of marking his territory, of facilitating his network, of proving he had access to the Hale portfolio. Caleb Rowan, Arthur continued, has been orchestrating this network. He uses his advisory firm to manage these small thefts, converting family privileges into hard cash flow, all under the polite guise of helping your mother. I don't understand. My mother wouldn't steal. Your mother, Arthur interrupted, his voice cutting, excels at not understanding things. As long as the check's clear and Brielle is happy, she has a masterful talent for willful ignorance. He slid another envelope across the polished desk. This one was thick, heavy. You have been funding it. My hands were shaking as I opened it. It was not a 30-year-old photograph. It was a stack of recent bank statements from the joint account, the account I had fed with 40% of my salary for 5 straight years. I saw my deposits, transferred from my North Star paycheck, again and again, hundreds of dollars, and then I saw the withdrawals. Rowan Advisory Management Fee, $200. Rowan Advisory Management Fee, $300. ADG Solutions, $500. Euro Travel Services, $1,200. The dates lined up: the European vacation, the Art Academy tuition, the endless master classes. ADG Solutions, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. Artistic Development Grant. A shell company, Arthur said calmly, owned by Caleb Rowan. He wasn't just skimming from me, he was skimming from you. Your mother provided the account, the access. Caleb provided the mechanism, and Brielle provided the justification, a perfect, parasitic triangle. I had been paying for the nails in my own coffin. I had funded the very life that was used, day after day, to prove I was the lesser, undeserving one, the sensible one, who always understood. I felt a wave of nausea so profound I had to grip the arms of the chair, the scratch on my car, the anonymous threat. It wasn't from Sal or Mitch. It was from him, or his people. I hadn't just suspended an attendant. I had locked Caleb Rowan's proxy, Brielle, out of the system. I had cut his access. I had challenged his ownership. I have been standing on the sidelines for too long, Arthur said, and his voice was low, almost human. I respected your mother's choice to raise you apart from this. I thought, perhaps it was for the best. I was wrong. I let a generation of spenders and parasites take root in my own house. He looked at me, not as a grandfather, but as a CEO. I want an heir, Luna, but I want an heir who knows how to own, someone who knows what it costs, someone who understands the mechanisms, someone who is not afraid to look at the ledger. You have proven you can own one small, broken thing. You have proven you can take responsibility for it. He leaned forward. Now I am offering you a choice, a real one. A job, I said. No, a mission. I am naming you Special Projects Supervisor. It is a temporary title. You will have 30 days. I have 5 other properties, the ones circled in red, that are showing the same signs of leakage. Gray Line Cold Storage, Brookspan Logistics. I want you to go into every one. You will have the same limited authority. You will find the leak. You will analyze the mechanism, and you will plug it. You will report only to me. And what happens after 30 days? We will see. He stood up, a sign the meeting was ending. There is one condition, absolute secrecy. You are still just an auditor. No one can know you are my granddaughter. No one can know you report to me. If Caleb, or your mother, or the rest of my entitled family find out what you are doing, they will unite, and they will destroy you. They will paint you as a usurper, a gold digger. They will turn on you, again. I thought about the 100 and change left in my bank account. I thought about the deep, white scratch down the side of my car. I thought about Brielle, smiling in Paris, a trip paid for with my rent money. I accept, I said. Good. You cannot stay in your car. It is compromised. He slid a single, old-fashioned brass key across the desk. It was heavy. The warehouse at Granite Yards has old staff dormitories on the 3rd floor. They are Spartan, they are clean, and they are secure. You will move your things there tonight. The Halcyon Pilot email is your only line of contact. I took the key. That night, I moved my life. It took exactly 1 trip, the cardboard box from North Star, the duffel bag of clothes, the ancient laptop. The dormitory was exactly as he had said. Spartan, a single cot, a metal desk, a shared bathroom down the hall with peeling green paint. It was the most beautiful room I had ever seen. I locked the door, a real, solid lock, and slept for the first time in 4 days. I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating violently against the metal desk. I had turned it back on. Stupidly, out of habit. It had been buzzing for hours. 27 missed calls from my mother. As I stared at it, the screen lit up again. Linda Cruz. I braced myself, my stomach tightening, and answered. Hello. Luna, what did you do? She was not asking. She was screaming. The very drama I had been warned against was now here, in full, screeching force. What are you talking about? Brielle, her card, her access card for the warehouse. She uses that studio. She's been locked out. She had a client meeting. You embarrassed her. She uses that studio. Of course, the free VIP access was not just for parking. It was for a space. Another free, subsidized part of her life. Another asset skimmed from the Halcyon books, facilitated by Caleb Rowan. There was a financial review, I said, my voice cold and practiced. I was an auditor. All non-essential access privileges were revoked. Non-essential Luna. That is her livelihood. You work in a little office. You do not understand. She is an artist. You had no right. I had the authority. I do not care what authority you think you have, she hissed. That is family. You are being petty and jealous. I don't know what little game you're playing. But you will fix this. You will call whoever you need to call, and you will restore Brielle's family rights. Immediately. The phrase hit me like a physical shock. Family rights. The right to take, the right to consume, the right to my salary, my apartment, my stability, the right to everything, while I had the right to nothing. The old Luna, the sensible one, would have caved. She would have apologized. She would have been terrified of this anger. She would have promised to fix it. But the old Luna was asleep in a car with a key scratch down the side. No, I said. The silence on the other end of the line was total. A vacuum. What did you say? She whispered. I said no. Rights have to be paid for. If Brielle wants to use the studio, she can submit a leasing application and pay the fee, just like everyone else. I ended the call. I sat on the edge of the cot, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had finally done it. I had hung up on my mother. The laptop on the desk pinged. A new email from Arthur Hale. He must have known. He must have been listening to the fallout. The email was brief. You are learning fast. Be at my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. It is time you attended a meeting of the family trust. They have never heard your name. That is about to change. The family trust meeting was a quiet, brutalist education. I was introduced not as a granddaughter, but as Luna Cruz, a special projects consultant. I was a ghost at the table. My presence was an anomaly they could not place, and therefore chose to ignore. They, my great-aunt Margot, a woman with a face like pinched porcelain, and two cousins I had never met spoke of market fluctuations and charitable optics. They did not speak of operations. They did not speak of costs. The money was just there, a force of nature, like the weather. I said nothing. I just watched. And when it was over, I went to work. My 30 days had begun. My new office was the Spartan dorm room. My new life was a stack of ledgers. I started with Asset 1 Greyline Cold Storage. Greyline was a massive, windowless block of concrete near the freight yards. I spent the first day not in the office, but in the utility junction, staring at the power meters. The electricity bills were astronomical, 30% higher than the industry standard for a facility of its size. The internal reports blamed aging compressors. I pulled the maintenance logs. The compressors were aging, but they were also running at 100% capacity, 24 hours a day. They never cycled down. I found the floor manager, a man named Henderson, who looked as tired as the machinery. They just run hot. Ms. Cruz, he said, resigned. We keep requisitioning new parts, but the budget never gets approved. Who signs off on the budget? I asked. Rowan Advisory, mostly, he shrugged. They handle our vendor management. There it was again. Caleb. I didn't tell Henderson about Caleb. I just asked for a building schematic and the electronic keycard access logs. He gave them to me, grateful someone was finally asking. I spent that night in my dorm room, cross-referencing the two. The schematic showed a large, decommissioned Section D on the third floor. The keycard logs showed 0 authorized entries to Section D, but the power consumption logs told a different story. They showed a massive, consistent energy draw isolated to that section. The next morning, at 5 a.m., I went to Greyline. I bypassed the main office and went straight to Section D. The main door was locked, as expected, but the keycard Arthur had given me, the one with limited administrative access, had one function the floor managers did not override. I swiped. The lock clicked open. The air that hit me was not the sterile chill of the rest of the building. It was warm, humid, and smelled of spices and cooking oil. I stepped inside. The entire decommissioned floor had been converted. It was a massive, unlicensed commercial kitchen, dozens of stainless steel tables, deep fryers, massive walk-in non-refrigerated pantries, pallets of cooking oil, sacks of flour, a local catering company, one I'd seen at food truck festivals, was running their entire operation out of my grandfather's freezer. They had tapped directly into the building's main power grid, bypassing the floor's individual meter, and were running their fryers and ventilation hoods, overwhelming the compressors for the actual cold storage below. It was brilliant, in its own way. Caleb wasn't just skimming, he was subletting. He had turned a dead space into a cash-on-the-side rental, billing the tenant directly, and sticking Halcyon with the massive electricity bill. I didn't confront the caterers. I didn't have the authority to evict them, but I had the authority to protect the asset. I went back to the utility junction. I found the power main for Section D, and I shut it off. Then I went to the keycard control panel and permanently deauthorized every card that had ever been used to access that floor, including the one Caleb Rowan likely used. I rekeyed Henderson, the floor manager, giving him sole access. Re-inventory the entire section, I ordered him, and report any non-Halcyon assets to me. As of now, this floor is offline. He looked at the dead power main, then at me, and a slow smile spread across his face. He was the first person in the Halcyon group who didn't look at me with suspicion. He looked at me with relief. 2 days later, the electricity bill for Greyline dropped by 28%. The compressors cycled down for the first time in a year. I moved to Asset 2 Brookspan Logistics. This was a trucking depot, a hub and spoke for last-mile deliveries. The leak here wasn't power, it was maintenance. The ledger was bleeding out from a single line item, exclusive fleet maintenance contract. The contract was with a company called BRS Solutions. I recognized the initials immediately. Brielle Rowan. Sanders. Gnome. I ran the corporate registration. BRS Solutions. Sole proprietor Caleb Rowan. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. He had granted himself an exclusive, no-bid contract to service the entire Brookspan fleet of over 50 delivery vans. The invoices were pristine, bi-weekly service, full synthetic oil changes, new tires every 20,000 miles. I went to the depot and did a spot check. I walked the line of vans with the dispatcher. I ran my finger over a dipstick. The oil was black, gritty. I checked the tire treads. They were balding, some with different brands on the same axle. They weren't being serviced. The invoices were ghosts. Caleb was billing Halcyon for premium services and providing nothing, while the asset literally ground to a halt. I used my Halcyon Pilot email. I sent a single message to the procurement department, invoking my new limited authority. The BRS Solutions contract is suspended indefinitely, pending fraud review. Open an immediate and transparent bidding process for a new fleet maintenance vendor. All bids to be submitted to this email. Within 48 hours, I had 3 bids from local, legitimate service companies. I signed a new contract with the best one. The cost was 31% lower than Caleb's Ghost contract, and this one included a performance guarantee. Asset 3 Iron Hall Events Center. This was Caleb's personal playground, a beautiful, restored industrial-age ballroom, all exposed brick and iron trusses. It was also, according to the books, a financial black hole. It hosted high-paying corporate events, but the books showed it was donated for community and family use over 60% of the time. I pulled the event logs. The family bookings were all anonymous, just blocked out in red. I then pulled up Brielle's social media. I created a spreadsheet. Date of Iron Hall family use booking, March 12th. Date of Brielle's live stream. My exclusive spring showcase. March 12th. The background exposed brick. Iron trusses. Date of Iron Hall community donation. April 2nd. Date of Brielle's masterclass with fans. April 2nd. It was her personal soundstage. A multi-million-dollar asset, taken off the market for days at a time, so my cousin could film content for her 30,000 followers. I did what I had done at the parking lot. I implemented a new rule. I created a simple, mandatory booking form and a payment portal. All bookings, including family and community, now required a justification, a named user, and a credit card on file for incidentals. I didn't have to wait long for the pushback. This time, it was official. An email arrived from a sleek law firm downtown. It was from Caleb's assistant. Dear Miss Cruz, we are in receipt of your fraud review notice regarding BRRS Solutions. This is a baseless and tortious interference with a binding contract. We demand you cease and desist all contact with Halcyon vendors and provide a full retraction, or we will be forced to pursue legal remedies for damages. They were threatening me. My hands were shaking, but not with fear, with rage. I opened the BRS contract. I found the service level agreement. I replied directly to the lawyer. Per the attached contract, BRS Solutions is required to provide itemized timesheets and parts invoices upon request. Please provide them for the last 6 months. My audit shows zero evidence of work performed. If you would prefer, we can arrange a joint, third-party inspection of the fleet to verify the services you've billed for. I hit send. There was no reply. They could not provide the timesheets. There were none. With the data from all 3 assets, I started building. I was an analyst. After all, I linked the cash flow from the lots, the new vendor contracts from Brookspan, and the utility savings from Grayline. I built a simple, clean, real-time dashboard. I set an automated alert. Notify Luna Cruz. Any payment request over $7,500, any new vendor contract, any family access request. I was building my own system, my own set of rules. Then came the text from my mother. It was even more frantic than the last one. Luna, what are you doing? You are destroying Caleb's hard work. He has done so much for this family. For us, he is a good man, and you are ruining his reputation. You are playing a game that is too big for you. Stop this. Stop it now. His hard work, the ghost invoices, the unlicensed kitchen, the parasitic contracts. I stared at the message. I thought about the cold in my car. I thought about the $186. I thought about the scratch on my door. I replied with a single line. In God we trust. Everyone else, bring receipts. I turned the phone off. The next day, I received an email from Arthur. It wasn't praise. It was a new document. Delegation of authority. He had granted me signing power for any operational expenditure or contract under $50,000. I didn't have to just recommend. I could now execute. The on-site teams started to notice. Henderson at the cold storage plant now emailed me directly with optimization ideas. The dispatcher at Brookspan sent me a photo of a newly serviced van. It's oil clean. They had been invisible, unheard, and now they had an ally. The aggregated monthly profit, projected across the 5 assets I was touching, was climbing. Arthur remained silent. He let the data speak. Brielle, however, did not. I made the mistake of turning my phone on and saw a notification. She was live. I clicked. She was in a small, white-walled studio, not iron hall. She looked tearful. And it's just so hard, she was saying to her followers, dabbing a perfectly dry eye, when you're trying to build something beautiful and someone in your own family, someone jealous, just comes in and tries to tear it all down. They don't understand the artistic struggle. They just understand spreadsheets. I closed the app. I was too busy for this. I was too busy looking at the numbers. I was in my dorm room late that night, on the 30th, final day of my assignment, reviewing the trust documents for the next day's meeting with Arthur. I had access to a new data room. I clicked on a folder labeled Trust Amendments. A file had been modified just this afternoon. Third-generation beneficiary addendum. I opened it. My great-aunt Margot, my 2 useless cousins, their names were all there, and then a new name, added just today, a provisional representative for the new generation, Brielle Whitaker. My name was not on the list. I had saved his assets. I had plugged his leaks. And in response, the family had circled the wagons, not around me, but around her. I had been so focused on the spreadsheets. I hadn't seen the knives. The Hale Conservatory was nothing like Hale House. Hale House was new money, hard steel and glass, a statement of power. The conservatory was old money, a long, suffocating room paneled in dark mahogany, lined with oil paintings of long-dead Hales. It smelled of furniture polish and the kind of quiet decay that costs a fortune to maintain. I was, once again, the consultant at the end of the table. Arthur was at its head. On his right sat my great-aunt Margot, a woman who looked like she'd been carved from a bar of expensive, unscented soap. Flanking her were my two cousins, Philip and Edward, men in their 40s with soft, uncalloused hands and the bored expressions of those who have never had to wait for a bus. Arthur opened the meeting. "We are here to review the quarterly performance of the subsidiary assets." "We are here, Arthur," Margot cut him off, her voice thin but slicing, "to discuss a far more pressing matter, a matter of governance, and the very stability of this family." She slid a bound copy of the trust document to the center of the table. A single paragraph was highlighted. Article 4, Section 2, the Worthiness Clause. It states that all beneficiaries, current or prospective, must act in a manner that upholds the integrity, reputation, and unity of the family. It is a moral covenant. I felt my stomach tighten. This was it, the document I had seen last night. "It has come to our attention," Margot continued, gesturing vaguely in my direction, "that this consultant has been acting in a manner that is deeply, intentionally divisive." Philip, the elder cousin, leaned forward. "She has been terrorizing the staff. We're hearing reports of chaos at Brookspan. She's interfering with long-standing, stable vendor relationships. It's disruptive." "It is more than disruptive," Margot said, her voice dropping into a register of profound, rehearsed sympathy. "It is ungrateful. It is cruel. We have heard from her mother, Linda, who is beside herself. This girl, whom Linda raised and protected, has turned on her. She has made wild, baseless accusations and has caused irreparable harm to family friends." It was a brilliant attack. They weren't challenging my numbers. They were challenging my character. I wasn't an analyst. I was a bad daughter. "This disruption, this meanness," Margot said, "is precisely what the Worthiness Clause was designed to prevent. She is a liability, Arthur, not an asset. But the core problem remains: the next generation must be represented in the trust." She gave a thin, triumphant smile. "Which is why we are formally proposing a solution. We move to add a provisional representative for the third generation, effective immediately, someone who understands our values, who has a positive public profile, and who respects the family structure. We nominate Brielle Whittaker." It was a corporate assassination. They were validating Brielle as the official heir and erasing me as a human being in a single motion. They were replacing the worker with the mascot. The cousins murmured their agreement. Arthur remained perfectly still. He looked at Margot. He looked at the cousins. Finally, he looked at me, all the way down the long, polished table. "Ms. Cruz," he said, his voice quiet but filling the silent room, "you have 7 minutes to respond to this proposal." 7 minutes. He wasn't asking me to defend my relationship with my mother. He wasn't asking me to apologize. He was giving me a time slot. I stood. I walked to the head of the table. I did not look at Margot. I plugged my beat-up 5-year-old laptop into the room's billion-dollar projection system. The screen behind me lit up, bright and clean, displaying my dashboard. "For the last 30 days, I have not been managing reputation," I said, my voice as cold and clear as the numbers. "I have been managing the assets." I clicked to the first slide. Gray Line Cold Storage. This asset was losing over $10,000 a month in utility overages. It is now saving 28% on power. The reason for the loss was an unauthorized, unmetered commercial kitchen, run by a third party. Subletting Section D, we shut it down. I clicked. Brookspan Logistics. This asset was paying BRS Solutions, a sole proprietorship owned by Caleb Rowan, for an exclusive maintenance contract. The invoices were fraudulent. The work was not performed. By terminating that ghost contract and opening a transparent bid, we saved 31%, and the fleet is now actually operational. I clicked again. Iron Hall Event Center. The center was reporting almost zero profit despite high demand. This screen shows the Iron Hall Community Use Booking Calendar, in red, overlaid with Brielle Whittaker's social media schedule, in blue. The asset was being used as her personal, free soundstage, removing over 60% of its market availability. I clicked one last time. And this is where it started, Granite Yards. A permanent VIP access card, granting free, unlimited access to the lot and the attached studio space, registered to Brielle Whittaker, facilitated by Rowan Advisory. I turned off the projector. The room was absolutely silent. The cousins were no longer looking at Margot. They were staring at the blank screen. Their minds, soft as they were, finally calculating the sheer volume of money I had just put back on the table. Margot was the first to recover. She gave a short, brittle laugh. Well, this is all very technical. A few billing errors. Arthur, this is hardly a conspiracy. It is family accommodation, perks. It's how we've always supported the younger generation's endeavors. Is it? I asked. I turned to face her. Whose family? The one paying the bills, or the one spending the money? The question hung in the air, rude and sharp and undeniable. Arthur finally spoke, his voice contemplative. The night I met Ms. Cruz, he said, was 31 days ago. It was raining. She was living in her car, a vehicle she owned outright. She had been fired. Her apartment was locked. She had $186 to her name. Margot looked baffled. Arthur, what on earth does that have to do with this? Everything, he replied. I asked her one question. Do you own this car? If that night, I had asked, are you renting this car? And she had answered, I borrowed it. This meeting would not be happening. I would have stopped right there. Ownership is not an accommodation. Margot, it is a burden. It appears Ms. Cruz is the only one in this room, besides myself, willing to carry it. As if on cue, the heavy mahogany doors at the end of the room swung open. Caleb Rowan entered. He was the picture of the concerned advisor. Silvering hair, a kind, troubled face, a suit that cost more than my car. He strode in, holding a leather-bound folder. Arthur, forgive my intrusion, he said, his voice rich with feigned sincerity. I came as soon as I heard. Margot, Philip, I am so sorry you are being put through this. He was magnificent, a consummate actor. I cannot, in good conscience, stand by while this tragedy unfolds, Caleb said, placing the folder in front of Arthur. I am here as a friend of the family, as Linda's friend, and as an ethical advisor to this trust. What is this, Caleb? Arthur asked, his voice dangerously flat. It is a letter, Arthur, which I implore you to read. Caleb turned and looked at me, his eyes full of practiced pity. It is a formal complaint regarding undue influence. It outlines my deep, professional concern that your granddaughter, a young woman in a state of clear financial desperation, is taking advantage of you, of your age. She is preying on old family wounds, isolating you from your family, and manipulating you into giving her control she is not emotionally or professionally equipped to handle. She is tearing this family apart for her own gain. As your fiduciary, I must formally object. It was a masterstroke. He had flipped the entire narrative. I wasn't the analyst. I was the gold digger. He wasn't the parasite. He was the protector. I opened my mouth to bring up the BRA contract, to show them the proof, but Arthur simply held up a hand, silencing me. Thank you, Caleb, Arthur said. Your concern for my well-being is noted. He reached into his own briefcase, which sat by his chair. He pulled out a small, gray portable hard drive and plugged it into the projector. You are correct that this situation began in a parking lot, Arthur said, but you seem to have the details wrong. You call this undue influence. I call it an interview. He pressed a key. The screen lit up. A high-angle, black and white video, the rain, the supermarket parking lot, my old sedan, sitting alone. We watched, in dead silence. As a dark Bentley pulled up, we watched Arthur get out. The audio was clear, amplified by the room's speakers. We heard the tap, tap, tap on the window. We heard my voice, sharp and terrified. "Can I help you?" And then we heard Arthur's, "Do you own this car?" We heard him offer the card. We heard him say, 7:12 a.m., the video continued, showing him walking away, getting in his car, and driving off. It showed my car sitting there, unmoving, for a full 60 seconds before I finally, cautiously, opened the door to retrieve the card. The entire narrative Caleb had just spun of me, desperate, manipulative, preying on a vulnerable old man, was utterly, completely, and silently destroyed. Arthur was not the victim. He was the instigator, Caleb Rowan's kind. Concerned face had gone perfectly, beautifully pale. Arthur shut off the video. "This consultant," he said, "did not seek me out. I sought her out, because she was the only one in my line of sight who knew how to own something, instead of just spending it." He turned his gaze back to Margot. "Now, shall we vote on the motion to hire an independent, forensic auditor for all contracts held by Rowan Advisory, the cousins, Philip and Edward?" Nearly fell over themselves to second the motion. Margot, her face a mask of pinched fury, was trapped. She, too, had to vote yes. The motion passed unanimously. All contracts with Rowan Advisory were frozen. All family perks, including those for Brielle Whitaker, were suspended indefinitely, pending the outcome of the audit. Caleb Rowan did not say another word. He did not look at me. He simply turned, his composure fractured, and walked out of the room. The heavy doors clicked shut behind him. My phone, in my pocket, began to vibrate. A long, continuous string of messages. I didn't need to look. I knew it was Linda. I knew they would be tearful, accusatory, hysterical. "How could you do this to Caleb? You've ruined us." I ignored the vibration. I pulled out my laptop, which was still warm, and opened the dashboard. The efficiency numbers from Greyline were still trending in the right direction. We walked out of the conservatory. The cousins avoided my gaze. Margot looked like she had swallowed poison. Arthur walked beside me, his pace measured, matching mine. "You did not defend your character," he noted, as we waited for the elevator. "My character wasn't on the balance sheet," I replied. He almost smiled. The elevator doors opened. "The climax is far from over," he said as he stepped in. "What you did today was necessary, but you have drawn a line. The path of ownership is a lonely one. Luna." The doors closed, leaving me alone in the mahogany-paneled hall. He was wrong. I wasn't lonely. I was focused. I breathed in the smell of old wood and furniture polish. For the first time in my life, I had a new definition of family. It wasn't blood. It wasn't a name. It wasn't the people who demanded you pay for their dreams. Family was Henderson, the floor manager at Greyline, sending me an email about a more efficient compressor. Family was the dispatcher at Brookspan who was finally getting his trucks fixed. Family was the man in the elevator who, like me, was willing to look at the ugly, terrifying, honest truth of the ledger. My phone buzzed again. A desperate, angry vibration. I silenced it and headed for the stairs. I had work to do. It took less than 12 hours for the war to go public. I was in my dorm room, analyzing the Greyline power grid data, when my phone, which I'd left on silent, lit up with a string of notifications. They were not texts. They were tags, anonymous accounts, all created within the last 24 hours, were flooding the social media pages of the Riverton Business Journal. The comments were identical. Ask Halcyon Forge why they're letting Luna Cruz steal her family's inheritance. Luna Cruz kicked her own mother out of her home and is trying to disown her cousin. This woman is a parasite, preying on her elderly grandfather. Then came the blog post, a local entertainment and gossip site. Riverton Confidential posted an article, the headline, "Billionaire's Ice-Cold Granddaughter, the Hale Legacy's New Snake." I clicked it. My stomach turned to ice. The photo, the main photo of the article, was me. It was grainy, taken from a distance, through a rain-streaked window. It was me. That first night, Slumped in the driver's seat of my sedan in the supermarket parking lot, my face illuminated by the glow of my phone. They had been watching me even then. The article painted a vicious picture. I was a failed, desperate analyst, drowning in debt, who had stalked her estranged grandfather and manipulated him, preying on his age to get her hands on the family fortune. It quoted sources close to the family, who described me as emotionally unstable and vindictive. The worst part came 2 hours later. Brielle. She appeared on Riverton's most popular lifestyle podcast. Her voice was soft, cracking, the performance of a lifetime. She spoke of deep generational trauma and the pain of sudden family betrayal. She never mentioned my name, which was far more effective. She just called me my cousin. She just doesn't understand the artistic soul. Brielle wept, her voice catching perfectly. She lives in a world of cold numbers, spreadsheets. She came in and just burned everything down. She told my mother. She told her she wasn't worthy. She suspended all the support my family has given to the local art community, just out of spite. I am just so broken by this. The podcast host was eating it up. The comments section exploded with sympathy for Brielle and venom for the spreadsheet cousin. I was being defined. I was the cold, calculating villain. Brielle was the suffering artist. Caleb was the respected community advisor. The final blow landed on my laptop. A formal legal demand letter from Caleb Rowan's attorneys. It was addressed to me. CEO Halcyon Forge Group. It accused me of tortious interference, defamation, and breach of contract regarding the BRS Solutions Agreement. It claimed my actions were reckless, amateurish, and driven by personal animus. It demanded immediate reinstatement of the contract, a public apology, and compensation for damages to his reputation and projected income. The number they listed was absurd. $2.5 million. They were trying to drown me in noise, in drama, in paper. They expected me to panic, to cry, to run to Arthur. They expected me to fight them in the mud, on Instagram and in the gossip blogs. I did not. I muted my phone. I closed the podcast. I shut down the blog. I let the anonymous comments scream into the void. I opened my laptop, my real work, and began to build the packet for the forensic auditors Arthur had hired. Caleb was smart, but he was also arrogant. He assumed no one would ever actually look at the invoices. I did. He assumed no one would ever cross-reference the signatures. I did. I found the original BRS contract. I scanned his signature. Then I scanned the signatures on 17 approved invoices from Brookspan. I overlaid them in a simple imaging program. They were not similar. They were identical, pixel for pixel. He hadn't even bothered to sign them individually. He had used a high-resolution image file of his signature, a digital stamp, copied and pasted onto every fraudulent bill. That was forgery. That was clean, simple, prosecutable. I compiled the invoices. I compiled the digital signature comparison, but I needed the linchpin. I needed the smoking gun that proved the work was never done. The BRS contract had billed Halcyon $80,000 for 6 new top-of-the-line diagnostic scanners for the Brookspan fleet. I had seen them, sitting on a shelf in the depot, looking pristine, still in the plastic. I drove to Brookspan, the dispatcher, who now saw me as an ally. Let me in. I went to the scanners. They looked new. Fresh paint, new logos. But the serial number plate on the back of the first one was slightly crooked. It was glued on. I got my fingernail under the edge and peeled it off. Underneath, etched into the original casing, was the real serial number. Faded, but legible. I photographed it. I did the same for all 6. I went back to my dorm room and ran the numbers. They were old models, discontinued 5 years ago. Then, I did something else. I went on Instagram. I went to Caleb Rowan's personal, public-facing profile. It was full of photos of him at charity galas, on boats, shaking hands. He was the picture of Riverton success. I scrolled back for a full year, and I found it. A photo of him at a logistics trade show. He was standing next to a pallet of used equipment. His caption: Great finds at the expo. Picked up some amazing floor models for a steal. Big things coming for B.R.S. Solutions. I zoomed in his right hand. He was holding up one of the scanners. The light was perfect. The original, etched serial number was clearly visible. It was a perfect match. He had bought junk, spray-painted it, created fake invoices, forged his own signature, sold them to Halcyon as new for an $80,000 profit, and then bragged about the first part of the crime on social media. I sent the entire packet, the invoices, the signature analysis, the side-by-side photos of the Instagram post, and the scanner at Brookspan directly to Arthur. His reply, 2 minutes later, was not an email. It was a phone call. This is no longer a trust matter. Luna, his voice was cold, sharp steel. This is wire fraud. This is a criminal matter. You have my full authorization to forward this entire packet to the district attorney's office. Do it, if you deem it necessary. He hung up. I sat there. The file open. The DA. This was the point of no return. This was no longer about family. It was about the law. As if summoned by the thought, my phone lit up with a Facebook notification. My mother. She had posted. For the first time in months, it was a public post. I have always believed that family is the most important thing. I raised my children to be respectful and kind. A good daughter knows her place. A good daughter is a quiet daughter. I am so proud of the true friends, like Caleb Rowan, who stand by us in these difficult times. Loyalty is everything. She had chosen, publicly, she had endorsed him. She had called me a bad daughter, a loud daughter, for the entire world to see. The sting was real. I closed my eyes for a moment, the exhaustion of the last month, of my entire life, washing over me. A new email pinged. Not from Arthur, it was from Jenna, a girl I used to work with at North Star Metric. The subject, holy crap. The email, hey Luna, just saw that trashy blog post, total garbage. Ignore it. I just wanted to say, I've been following the Halcyon stock announcements. They're restructuring their logistics chain. I know that's you. I've been in this industry for 10 years, and I have never seen anyone successfully stop this kind of high-level, internal family fraud. They usually just get buried. You're a legend. Don't let them win. I read it twice. A legend. I looked at the packet for the DA. I looked at my mother's post. I looked at the grainy photo of me, cold and alone in my car. I finally understood Arthur's question from that night. Do you own this car? I thought it was a test of my finances. It was not. I thought it was a test of my independence. It was more than that. It was a test of accountability. Owning something doesn't mean you get to use it. It means you are responsible for it, in public, when it's broken, when it's ugly, when it's hard, when someone scratches it. You are responsible for the truth of it. I own that car. I own the data. I own this audit. I own the decision. The floor of the Spartan dorm room vibrated slightly. A low rumble of thunder. A new storm was breaking over Riverton. Just like that first night, I sat alone. The blue light of the laptop illuminating my face, reviewing the final invoices. Another email. This one was official. From the Halcyon Forge corporate secretary. Subject notice of special shareholder meeting. I opened it. It was a summons for all primary stakeholders. My name was not on the list, but I was clearly the subject. Agenda Item 4. To review and vote on a proposed change to the designated manager of the Third Generation Trust. They were making their final move. The auditors were digging. Caleb was exposed, so they were going for the kill. They were going to use their votes to formally install Brielle, the public victim, the deserving one, and lock me, the spreadsheet cousin, out for good. The room was different. This was not the dark, mahogany-paneled conservatory, a relic of the past. This was the main shareholder boardroom on the 40th floor of Hale House. It was a glass box in the sky, sterile, modern, and filled with about 30 people in dark, expensive suits. These were not just nostalgic family members. These were institutional investors, fund managers, partners, and their lawyers. This was where the real power sat. Arthur was at the head of the massive, white marble table. I was seated, once again, in a consultant's chair, slightly back from the main table, next to the audio-visual podium. My old, scarred laptop felt like a bomb sitting on the sterile white credenza. They were all here. Margot, Philip, and Edward sat to Arthur's right, looking composed, as if the trust meeting had been a mere trifle. And on the other side, looking every bit the poised, innocent victim, was Brielle. She was seated next to her mother's lawyer, and at the end of the table, flanked by his own legal team, sat Caleb Rowan. He looked magnificent, his face a mask of composed concern, a man wrongly accused but attending out of duty. The corporate secretary droned through the opening procedures. The lead counsel for the board, a man with a face like expensive leather, summarized the agenda. And finally, he said, his voice resonating through the room's speakers, Agenda Item 4 to review and vote on a proposed change to the designated manager of the Third Generation Trust. Margot spoke immediately. Her voice was smooth, practiced. Mr. Chairman, she said to Arthur, before we proceed with the operational reviews, I believe we must address the matter of stability. The trust must have a clear, forward-facing representative in light of the recent and very public disruptions. The family has unified. We need a voice that represents healing, continuity, and the positive community values Halcyon has always stood for. She gestured warmly, a queen presenting her heir, to Brielle. We formally move to nominate Brielle Whitaker as the provisional representative of the third generation. She has the family's complete support. She has a proven, positive public platform, and she understands the spirit of our philanthropic endeavors. I call for an immediate vote to ratify her position. Caleb Rowan nodded gravely from his end of the table. A wise move, Margot, he said. The markets despise uncertainty. This would send a strong message of unity. Philip and Edward murmured. Here, here. They were rushing it. They were trying to make this a simple, clean, procedural vote. A show of family strength to quiet the investors before the audit could be formally presented. A moment, please, I said. My voice was quiet, but in the acoustically perfect, amplified room, it sounded like a judge's gavel. Every single head turned. 30 suits. Margot's eyes narrowed to slits. This is a shareholder matter. Ms. Cruz, you are a consultant. You do not have a voice or a vote here. Ms. Cruz is here at my personal invitation, Arthur said, his voice perfectly flat, cutting her off. And she happens to be the disruption you are referring to. The audit committee's findings are based on her report. It seems only logical that the board hear her findings before voting on a motion designed to silence them. The floor is yours, Ms. Cruz. I stood. I walked the long 20 feet to the head of the room. I plugged my laptop into the podium. The massive 80-inch high-definition screen that dominated the wall behind Arthur lit up. It did not show a spreadsheet. It showed a map. You are correct, Ms. Margot, I said, addressing her but speaking to the room of investors. This isn't about spreadsheets. It's about cash flow and stability. The map I had built was starkly simple. On the far left, a single box labeled Luna Cruz, North Star Metric Paycheck. An arrow pointed from it to a second, larger box, Joint Account Linda Cruz, Luna Cruz. From that central box, a spiderweb of arrows radiated outward. One arrow pointed to a box labeled Rowan Advisory, Monthly Management Fees. Another pointed to ADG Solutions, Artistic Grants. A third pointed to Euro Travel Services, Paris. From this cluster of shell companies and fees, a final set of thick red arrows converged on a single, massive box on the far right of the screen. This box contained a collage of brightly lit images, Brielle, in Paris, toasting the Eiffel Tower, Brielle, on stage at Iron Hall, conducting her masterclass, Brielle, smiling from her private studio at Granite Yards. "For 5 straight years," I said, my voice steady, amplified by the microphone. "I was told I was helping my mother pay her rent and utility bills. As you can see, that was not the case. I was, in fact, the primary, and entirely unwitting, investor in Brielle Whittaker's lifestyle brand. My salary was being systematically siphoned from my mother's account by her kind advisor, Caleb Rowan, and funneled into his own shell companies to fund this artistic endeavor. This was not a family stipend. Gentlemen, this was a private, off-book, an entirely fraudulent transfer of funds, orchestrated by a man billing this corporation as a trusted fiduciary." A low murmur went through the room. The investors, the ones who lived and died by data, were looking at Caleb Rowan. His mask of concern was still there, but it had tightened. "But that," I said, my hand on the mouse, "is just my personal money. Let's talk about Halcyon Forge's money." I clicked to the next slide. The screen split. On the left, a perfect, high-resolution screenshot of Caleb Rowan's Instagram post from 1 year ago, him, at the logistics trade show, smiling, holding up a piece of used equipment. His caption, "Great finds. Big things coming for B Solutions." The original, etched serial number on the scanner was clearly visible. I had circled it in red. On the right, the fraudulent invoice from BRS Solutions, billing Halcyon Forge for $80,000 for 66 new model X200 diagnostic scanners, and below that, my own photograph, taken 2 nights ago in the Brookspan Depot. The new, glued-on serial number plate had been peeled back, revealing the exact same etched serial number from Caleb's Instagram post. "Mr. Rowan," I said, turning to face him down the long table, "billed this company for $80,000 for new, top-of-the-line equipment. He then went to a trade show, bought discontinued, used junk for what his post called a steal, spray-painted it, glued on fake serial numbers, and had it installed, pocketing the entire difference. He wasn't just stealing from you, he was bragging about it on social media." I clicked to the final slide. This is one of 17 such fraudulent invoices from BRS Solutions alone. This is the forged digital signature stamp he used to approve them. This is the power grid data from the unlicensed kitchen at Gray Line. This is the booking log from Iron Hall. I picked up my personal phone. This is a complex fraud, and it deserves more than a 7-minute presentation. I have compiled all the raw, verifiable evidence, the invoices, the metadata, the signature comparisons, the social media timestamps into a single, secure data room. I am emailing the access link to every member of this board and their legal counsel right now. I hit send. A beat of silence. Then, all around the marble table, phones buzzed, and for the next 60 seconds, the only sound in the room was the sound of million-dollar investors and their lawyers scrolling, reading, and absorbing the undeniable truth. I watched their faces. I saw a fund manager from Chicago show his screen to the man next to him. I saw a lawyer zoom in on the signature file. This was no longer my presentation. It was their discovery. "This is theater," Margot finally snapped, her voice high and thin. "This is a fabrication. We don't know what's in these files. This is a data dump. It means nothing. It is a lie." Caleb Rowan surged to his feet, his chair scraping back. His mask was gone. His face was red. His voice shaking with genuine, desperate rage. This is media cut and paste, a disgruntled, fired employee taking photos out of context. This is slander, not an audit. I will not stand here and be assassinated by a child with a laptop." "You won't have to, Caleb," Arthur said, his voice dangerously mild. He nodded to a woman in a plain blue suit, sitting quietly against the wall, whom no one had noticed. "Ms. Davis, from Deloitte, our new, independent, forensic auditor. You and your team have been reviewing the BR contract and the full digital packet from Ms. Cruz for the last 48 hours. Would you care to comment on its fabrication?" Ms. Davis stood. She was the calmest person in the room. Thank you. Mr. Hale, Mr. Rowan, we have reviewed the digital metadata on the B.R. invoices provided by Ms. Cruz. I can confirm for the board that the signatory block on all 17 invoices, totaling over $400,000, originated from the same root image file. They are not 17 unique signatures. They are 17 copies of one digital stamp, applied electronically. This is conclusive evidence of, at minimum, profound contractual irregularity and, more likely, digital forgery. The data is authentic. The timeline is verified. The air went out of the room. Caleb Rowan sat down, hard, as if his legs had given out. He looked finished, and at that exact moment, the heavy doors at the back of the boardroom burst open. My mother, Linda Cruz, stormed in. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was not on any list. She looked frantic, her hair a mess, her face blotchy and stained with tears. Security was a step behind her. "Stop it!" she screamed. She looked past the investors, past Arthur, past Caleb, and her eyes, filled with a lifetime of fury, locked on me. "Stop it right now. Luna." The entire room of stunned shareholders stared as this unknown woman marched toward the table. "What are you doing?" she sobbed, her voice cracking. "You're killing this family. You're destroying us. Caleb is a good man. He helped us. He helped you when no one else would. You are ungrateful, and you are killing your family. You are killing me." The accusation just hung there, vibrating in the billion-dollar room. "You're killing the family." I looked at my mother. I saw her desperation. I saw her terror. And I saw, for the first time, that she was the linchpin. She was the why. She was the human shield. The emotional justification that Caleb had hidden behind for 15 years, as long as he was helping poor, victimized Linda. His actions were not theft. They were kindness. I had not just exposed him, I had exposed her. I waited. I let the silence draw out, until her sobs were the only sound. My voice, when I spoke, was very low, and the microphone picked up every word. "No, Mom," I said. I'm saving what's left of it." She stared at me, her mouth open, as if she was seeing a stranger. The security guards gently, firmly, took her by the arms and escorted her from the room. The doors clicked shut. The silence that followed was absolute, forensic. Arthur looked at the board. "The motion to nominate Ms. Brielle Whitaker has been tabled. We now have a new motion, put forward by the Audit Committee, a motion to indefinitely suspend all contracts and disbursements related to Rowan Advisory and all its known shell companies, and a second motion, to immediately begin legal proceedings for full financial clawback and restitution for all proven damages." "Seconded," snapped one of the fund managers from Chicago, his eyes still glued to the evidence on his phone. "All in favor," Arthur said. Every hand went up, every single one, even Margot's, her face pale and pinched, even Phillips and Edwards. The rats were the first to flee the sinking ship. "The motion passes unanimously," Arthur said. Brielle, who had been sitting frozen, perfectly silent, during the entire presentation, finally moved. She stood up, fumbled with her phone, her fingers shaking. She was trying to turn on her live stream. You can't," she stammered, pointing the camera at me, then at Arthur. But the performance was gone. The tears were real now, but they were tears of panic, not art. There was no script for this. She just looked, small and irrelevant. She turned and fled the room. A minute later, my phone buzzed with an alert. "Brielle Whitaker is live." I clicked the link. It was a jerky, tearful video of her in the elevator, but the comments section was chaotic. Someone had already posted a link. "The auditor's official press release, Halcyon Forge, suspends key vendor pending forensic fraud investigation." The tide was turning, in real time. The spreadsheet cousin had receipts. The jealous sister had the data. Her viewers were dropping off her feed, one by one, like rats. I closed the app. The shareholders filed out, muttering to their lawyers. Caleb Rowan and his team were gone. They had evaporated during the vote. A retreat so quiet, no one had even noticed. Soon, it was just me and Arthur in the massive, silent room. The screen behind us still showed the side-by-side comparison of the Instagram photo and the fraudulent invoice. Arthur did not clap. He did not say, "Congratulations." He simply looked at me, his expression unreadable, as I gathered my laptop. "The district attorney's office will be in contact," he said. "This will get much uglier before it is over. Caleb will fight. He will try to declare bankruptcy. Margot will retaliate. Your mother will be your mother. They will not stop." He held my gaze, his eyes just as sharp as they were that night in the rain. "Are you absolutely certain you want to continue this?" I thought about the cold vinyl of the car seat. I thought about the $186. I thought about the deep, white scratch down the side of my door. I thought about the years of being the sensible one. "Yes," I said. "I own my decision." He nodded. Once, a small, satisfied movement. The corporate secretary, who had been quietly gathering his papers by the door, paused. "Mr. Hale, shall I send the notice for next week's special session?" "Yes, Mr. Davies, you may, and the agenda." Arthur looked at me, then back at the secretary. Item 1. The formal plan of succession. The victory in the boardroom was not a celebration. It was the starting gun for the next attack. The sharks, having tasted blood, were now in a frenzy. The next morning, an emergency alert appeared on my laptop. It was not from Arthur, it was from the corporate counsel's office. Cinderline Health, one of Halcyon's largest and most important partners, a 9-figure contract that anchored our entire logistics division, was threatening to pull out. Their letter was brief and brutal. It cited the recent public family instability and the abrupt and chaotic suspension of key vendors. Caleb, it specifically mentioned a change of control clause in their contract. If Halcyon Forge could not provide immediate and verifiable proof of a new, stable, and transparent internal control system within 72 hours, Cinderline would enact the clause, terminating the partnership and triggering a catastrophic penalty fee. This was Margot's move. She and the cousins I'd humiliated were now on the Cinderline board calls, sowing dissent, painting a picture of chaos. Caleb was gone, so they were pulling the pin on a grenade, hoping to blow up the entire division just to blame me for the shrapnel. If this deal collapsed, I would not be the savior. I would be the consultant who cost the company its biggest client. I was in Arthur's office 5 minutes later. The mood was grim. "Margot is actively obstructing," Arthur said, his voice a low growl. "She is telling Cinderline that you are a rogue element, that your audit was a personal vendetta, and that there is no system in place, only chaos." "She's right," I said. Arthur looked up, his sharp eyes questioning. "She's right," I repeated. "I haven't fixed the system. I've just been plugging holes. They don't need a new manager. They need new rules. They need a governing process that isn't based on who you know or what your last name is. And you believe you can build and implement such a system in 72 hours. I don't have a choice," I said. He stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then he picked up his phone. "Mr. Davies," he said to the corporate secretary, "draft an executive order, effective immediately. I am granting Ms. Luna Cruz full temporary signing authority over all internal control protocols and vendor management contracts, company-wide. She will have the full power of my office. Notify the board." He hung up and looked at me. "The clock is ticking. Ms. Cruz, do not fail." I did not go to the boardroom. I went back to my dorm room. I pulled out a fresh legal pad. At the top, I wrote the ownership code. I was an analyst. I built systems. This was the most important one of my life. I started writing. Rule 1. All contracts under $10,000 must have a minimum of 2 competing bids. Rule 2. All contracts over $50,000 must be reviewed by the Independent Audit Committee. Rule 3. All vendor relationships must be recertified annually. No evergreen or exclusive contracts. Rule 4. Any family or community use of a corporate asset must be logged, justified, and approved via the central booking portal, with all associated costs billed to the relevant trust. I wrote 12 rules in all, clear, simple, logical. They were rules that any healthy, transparent company would already have. At Halcyon, they were a declaration of war. But rules on paper are just theories. I needed them to be real, and I needed them to be fast. I couldn't do it from the top floor. I had to build it from the ground up. I sent out 3 emails from my Halcyon Pilot account. I summoned Henderson, the tired floor manager from Grayline Cold Storage. I summoned the dispatcher from Brookspan Logistics. I summoned Sal, the day shift attendant from Granite Yards, the one who had watched me with angry, suspicious eyes, the one who was now working under my new, transparent QR code system. They met me in the Spartan dorm room, shuffling in, looking suspicious. 3 men who had been ignored by the family for a combined 50 years. "This is the new draft of the company's operating rules," I said, handing them the pages. "I'm not asking you to approve it. I'm asking you to help me write it. What's missing? What's the scam I haven't seen? How do we stop the next Caleb Rowan?" For the first hour, they said nothing. They were terrified. Then, Henderson, the oldest, tapped Rule 4. "This is good," he grunted, "but logged isn't enough. They'll just log it. We need a cost center impact report. Make 'em show, in dollars, what it's costing my division when they turn my freezer into a bakery." "Done," I said, amending it. Sal, the parking attendant, spoke up. "This bid thing," he said, pointing to Rule 1. "2 bids ain't enough. They'll just get 2 of their buddies to bid. You need a public, open portal, and you need to show the losing bids. Make the choice public." "Done," I said. For the next 6 hours, we built it. We hammered out the details. We created the process, the forms, the penalties. We forged a system, not of family values, but of radical operational transparency. It was the first time in their careers anyone had asked them how to actually run the company. With 36 hours left on the clock, Cinderline Health's legal team emailed, "We appreciate your drafted rules. However, we require a physical random spot check of the assets to verify these new controls are not just theory. We will be on site tomorrow at 10 a.m. They were calling my bluff. They expected to find chaos. Margot had probably told them which asset to pick, Brookspan or Grayline, the sites of the disruptions. When their team of 3 black-suited lawyers and 1 very skeptical-looking operations chief arrived, I did not take them to Grayline. I took them back to where it all began. I took them to Granite Yards. "This," I said, standing by the now-repaired, freshly painted entrance gate, "is the template. This lot was losing $3,000 a month. Today, it is one of our most profitable small-cap assets." How, the operations chief asked, his arms crossed. "By replacing trust with data." I took them to the attendant booth, the one I had suspended. It was now a small, clean, automated hub. I pointed to the new, clear price sign. I pointed to the QR code. I pointed to the active, humming license plate scanner. Then, I took them inside, on a new, clean monitor. I pulled up my dashboard. "This is our real-time revenue. You can see every car that enters, the time it stays, and the method of payment. This is the new public vendor portal for maintenance. And this," I clicked, "this is the live security feed. We log everything. There are no more blind spots. There are no more family perks. The rules are the rules. The price is the price." The operations chief leaned in, watching the data flow. He saw a truck pay with the QR code. He saw the transaction appear on the ledger 1 second later. He nodded, slowly. "This is good," he said. "This is real." We were walking back to the cars. The Cinderline team was murmuring, impressed. We were going to make it. Then, my phone rang. It was Arthur's lead counsel. Luna, we have a problem. A big one. Caleb Rowan just filed an emergency injunction. He's claiming you illegally accessed his proprietary data. He's got a friendly judge. They've issued a temporary restraining order against you accessing any and all vendor databases. He's trying to shut you down, right now. The Cinderline operations chief stopped. He'd overheard. A TRO. You're being sued by the vendor you fired. This was the counterattack. Caleb was trying to cut off my access to my own data. One moment, I said. I turned away, my heart hammering. What's the basis? I hissed into the phone. He's claiming his BRS Solutions contract was with Halcyon, but that his data was his own trade secret. He's saying you hacked him, that you had no right to be in his systems. My mind raced. The contract. The ghost contract. I had read it. I had read every line. The contract, I said, speaking fast. Check Section 9, Audit and Access. I remember it. It was boilerplate. Get it. Read it to me. Now. I heard fumbling. A click of a keyboard. The cavoid. Cinderline lawyers were watching me, their faces hardening. This was the instability they had been warned about. Got it, the lawyer said. Section 9B. Vendor agrees that all data, invoices, service logs, and diagnostic reports related to Halcyon Forge assets are the exclusive property of Halcyon Forge Group. Vendor grants Halcyon Forge and its designated agents unlimited, irrevocable access to any and all related digital and physical systems for the purposes of auditing, verification, and quality control. I turned back to the Cinderline team. I was not going to run. I put the phone on speaker. Read that last part again. Mr. Hayes, I said. The lawyer's voice was crisp and clear in the open air of the parking lot. Vendor grants Halcyon Forge and its designated agents unlimited, irrevocable access for the purposes of auditing. Thank you, I said, and hung up. I looked at the Cinderline chief. Mr. Rowan's contract, which he himself signed last year, explicitly granted Halcyon full and total access to his data. My audit was not hacking. It was enforcement of a contract he had already breached. We will be filing our counter motion, with the contract attached, within the hour. The chief stared at me. Then he broke into a slow, appraising smile. You read your contracts, Ms. Cruz. I like that. We were clear. The 72-hour deadline was approaching. We had 6 hours to spare. We got back to Hale House. The deal was saved. I was in my dorm room, about to collapse. When the final email came, it was from the Cinderline CEO. The clock on my laptop read 11:49 p.m., 11 minutes until the deadline. Subject final condition. My blood ran cold. Ms. Cruz, my team was exceptionally impressed. Your new ownership code is a model of governance. We are prepared to renew. We have one non-negotiable final condition. We require a formal, legally binding addendum to your new code. It must state, in perpetuity, that no special privileges, discounts, or family exemptions of any kind will be permitted in any Halcyon Forge pricing or access policy, now or in the future. Sign this, and the deal is done. This was it. This was the true test. They weren't just asking me to fix the system. They were asking me to put the entire Hale family, and any future version of it, in a permanent legal box. This was the end of the family accommodation Margot had spoken of. Forever. I opened the document. Addendum 1A, the no privilege clause. I thought of Brielle. I thought of my mother. I thought of Margot. I signed it. Luna Cruz, Special Projects Supervisor. I scanned it and sent it back, with a copy to Arthur and the entire board. I hit send at 11:53 p.m., 7 minutes to spare. My laptop pinged, a reply from the Cinderline CEO. Confirmed. We are proud to continue our partnership with the new Halcyon Forge. My compliments on your new governance. It's refreshing. I closed the laptop. I had not just saved the contract. I had just put the final, legal nail in the coffin of the old Hale dynasty. The free rides were officially and permanently over. The succession meeting was, I realized, not a meeting at all. It was a public execution, and the only question was, who would be led to the scaffold? The room was the same glass-walled box on the 40th floor, but it was standing room only. The investors were here, their lawyers, the auditors, the corporate partners. Cinderline Health's operations chief sat in the front row, his arms crossed, watching. Arthur opened the meeting. "We are here," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers, "to address Agenda Item 1, the formal plan of succession. The instability of the past month has proven that our old structure is no longer viable. We must choose a new path." The corporate lawyer stood and, with cold precision, laid out the two options. Option A, he read, is the Public Representative Committee. This model proposes a new oversight board, drawn from the family, to manage the Trust's public-facing and philanthropic endeavors. The nominees for this committee, put forth by Ms. Margot Hale, are Ms. Hale herself and Ms. Brielle Whitaker. Margot nodded. A tight, controlled smile. She was trying to salvage a partial victory. If she couldn't have the cash, she would take the reputation. Option B, the lawyer continued, is the operational trust structure. This model proposes the creation of a new, firewalled executive position, Chief Operating Officer of the Operations Trust. Reporting directly to the chairman, this individual would have full, autonomous control over all subsidiary assets, from logistics to properties. The nominee for this position is Ms. Luna Cruz. A stark choice. Option A was a face-saving, public relations maneuver. Option B was a revolution. "Before we discuss the options," Margot said, standing, her voice smooth, "I believe my nominee, Ms. Whitaker, has a prepared statement, a statement of healing, which this family and this board desperately needs." She sat. Brielle stood. She looked radiant, dressed in simple, elegant white. She held a single piece of paper, and her hands trembled just enough. She was giving the performance of her life. "Thank you, Aunt Margot," she began, her voice soft, catching. I just want to say that I forgive her." The room was utterly silent. "I forgive my cousin," she said, her eyes welling with crocodile tears, "for the pain she has caused, for the confusion. She came from a different world, a world of spreadsheets, not of people. She didn't understand what she was doing. She didn't understand the art of family. She tore down good men, like Mr. Rowan, out of that confusion. And I know this family can heal. And I want to be the one to lead that healing, to bring us back to our values of community and trust." She sat down to a scattering of confused, awkward applause. It was a masterpiece of passive aggression, painting me as a cold, robotic child who had broken everything she touched. Arthur did not acknowledge her. He just looked down the table. "Ms. Cruz, your response?" I stood. I walked to the podium. I plugged in my laptop. "I am not here to talk about forgiveness," I said. My voice was clear, amplified, and cold. "I am here to talk about governance." The screen behind me lit up, not with a spreadsheet, but with a clean, severe document. The ownership code, a 12-point plan for a new halcyon. Option A proposes we return to a system of feelings and trust. I propose we replace that system with one of data and rules. I did not list the rules. I did not have to. I clicked to the next slide. This code is not a theory. It is a legally binding contract. This is the addendum signed 72 hours ago with Cinderline Health, our largest corporate partner. The Cinderline deal was saved not by healing, but by the implementation of this code. Specifically, the no privilege clause, which legally ends the family accommodation system that allowed this company to be bled dry for decades. The Cinderline ops chief in the front row nodded. Once. And these, I clicked again. Are the results? This is not a projection. This is the actual bottom line recovery from the 5 assets I audited, projected forward for 1 fiscal year, a net recovery and savings of $12.4 million. The investors were not looking at Brielle's tear-streaked face. They were looking at the number. Option A, I concluded, is a return to the disease. Option B is the cure. The choice is yours. I sat down. The room was quiet. Margot looked furious. Brielle looked, for the first time, genuinely confused, as if she could not understand why her tears had failed. Thank you, Ms. Cruz, Arthur said. He turned to the room. Before we call for the vote, my personal counsel has one final piece of documentation to present to the board. It was signed this morning, at 6 a.m. A new man, an older lawyer I had never seen, stood up, holding a single, bound document, a collective intake of breath. Mr. Hale, the lawyer began, has executed a final addendum to his last will and testament. The room went dead. Margot's face went from pinched to ashen. The addendum, the lawyer read, his voice dry, stipulates the following: the shares and control related to the Hale Family Philanthropic Trust and the Hale Community Arts Endowment will remain as previously structured, to be managed by the family committee. Margot let out a small, relieved breath. She had won her peace. However, the lawyer continued, and his voice became hard, the primary controlling interest, the supermajority voting shares, of all operational assets, Halcyon Forge Group, Halcyon Logistics, Halcyon Properties, and all subsidiary assets will be placed into a new, irrevocable working trust. He paused, looking at the page. The sole beneficiary and designated manager of this new operational trust shall be the only heir of my bloodline who, when tested at their lowest point, proved they understood the fundamental nature of ownership, the only one who, on the night of, he named the date 35 days ago, could prove they owned a single asset, free and clear, and who then successfully defended that asset, and all others placed under their care. The lawyer looked up from the page, his eyes scanning the room, and then landing on me. The sole beneficiary and manager of the Halcyon Operations Trust is Ms. Luna Cruz. If the room had been silent before, it was now a vacuum. Brielle looked like she had been struck. Margot's mouth was open. Arthur turned his chair, not to the board, but to me. He looked at me, all the way down the table, and the investors turned to look, too. That night, Luna, in the rain, he said, his voice quiet but caring. I did not ask. Do you need money? I did not ask. Are you okay? I asked. Do you own this car? I had to know. I had to know if you were a spender or an owner, if you would accept the responsibility and the choice that comes with it. You did. This is the consequence of that choice. The lawyer cleared his throat. Not finished. One final item from the independent audit, concluded this morning. The auditors have confirmed Rowan Advisory's liability for restitution of all fraudulently obtained funds, estimated at $6.8 million. Civil proceedings have begun. He looked at Margot. Furthermore, the audit confirms that Ms. Margot Hale was aware of the BRS Solutions conflict of interest and failed to disclose it. The Independent Audit Committee recommends an immediate suspension of her voting rights from this board for a period of 18 months. It was a total, complete, systemic execution. A chair scraped back. It was not Margot. It was my mother, Linda, who must have been brought in by Margot as a guest, stood up. Her face was not angry. It was not tearful. It was dissolved, a mask of complete and total terror. She had lost Caleb. She had lost Brielle's future. She had lost her family rights. She was, for the first time in her life, facing a ledger that had no one left to pay it. She looked at me, her daughter, the last person left. Luna, she whispered, her voice a desperate, broken rasp. Honey, please, you won. You won. Okay, I need your help. We're family. Please, Luna, I need you to help me. This was the final test, the final bill. Come due, the sensible one, the utility, being asked for one last transfer. I looked at my mother, at her desperate, outstretched hand. No, I said. My voice was amplified by the microphone, clear, calm, and final. I will not finance the bottomless pit of privilege anymore. I am willing to pay the bill for the truth. You are not. She just stared at me, her hand frozen in the air. We will now vote, Arthur said, as if nothing had happened. This is a formality, to ratify the trust's new management, all in favor of option B, the COO structure to be managed by Ms. Cruz. It was a secret, electronic ballot, but the investors, having seen the will, the Cinderline contract, and the numbers, knew where the power and the money now resided. The screen lit up. Option A 3%, option B 97%. The chairman of the board banged his gavel. The motion passes. Ms. Luna Cruz is confirmed as the new Chief Operating Officer of the Halcyon Operations Trust. This meeting is adjourned. The room erupted in a storm of motion. Investors, lawyers, shareholders, all filing out, murmuring into their phones. I just sat there, my hands flat on the table. Eventually, the room was empty. Just me and Arthur. He walked over, the silence returning. He held out his hand. It was not a key. It was a single, heavy, black executive key card. This is for your new office, he said. The one on the top floor, above mine. I took it. It was cold and heavy. From now on, he said, and I saw his eyes were bright. You own your decisions, all of them. I nodded. I walked out of the boardroom. The hallway was not empty. Brielle was there, waiting. Her face a mask of mottled, ugly rage. The victim was gone. The artist was gone. This was just the raw, spoiled child. You, she hissed, her voice low and venomous. She actually lunged at me, grabbing my arm. You took everything. You humiliated me. You have to fix this. You owe me. Give me back my access. Give me back my honor. I did not pull away. I did not raise my voice. I just looked at her hand on my arm until she let go. I took out my phone. I pulled up the Century 2-hour-old Cinderline contract. I held the screen up for her to see the addendum I had signed. The no privilege clause. This is the new law, Brielle, I said. It's legally binding. Honor doesn't have a friends and family discount. She stared at the words, her mind unable to process a rule she could not charm or cry her way around. Behind her, leaning against the wall, was Linda. My mother. She just stared at me, at this final, cold, efficient stranger who used to be her daughter. She did not say a word. She just watched, and then, as I turned to walk away, she slid down the wall and slowly backed away. I walked to the executive elevator. The doors opened. I stepped inside. The doors closed. The mirrored steel reflecting only me. I was, for the first time in my entire life, completely, totally, and absolutely alone. But I was not lonely. The elevator opened onto the top floor. The office was vast, walled in glass, overlooking the whole of Riverton. The desk was a single, massive piece of polished, dark wood. It was empty. I reached into my pocket. I took out two things. I placed my old, worn, creased car registration on the gleaming wood. Next to it, I placed my new, heavy, black ID card, Luna Cruz, Chief Operating Officer, my phone buzz, a new message, on the new, secure Halcyon line. It was from Arthur. Tomorrow, 7:12 a.m., the transfer begins. I looked out the window. The city lights were just beginning to glitter against the dusk. My city. I smiled. From a single car to an entire system. It was all, finally, mine to own. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please let me know where you're listening from in the comments. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts. And do not forget to subscribe, like the video, and give it a huge boost by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this.